morning, everyone.
At the Hummingbird Cafe in Rockhampton, the Prime Minister's re-election fight is humming along.
I think I'll just have a cup of tea.
The polls are too close for him to be on cruise control, but this PM might be approaching cruising altitude in a campaign going as close to plan as he might reasonably hope for.
This is what elections are about. They're about choices.
Unlike his opponent, even when the story turns against Scott Morrison, he's clearly got a knack for flipping it back in his favour. Like when Matt Canavan says,
well, the net zero thing is all sort of dead anyway.
That's not the coalition's position, and it's not the government's position. You know, we're a party and a coalition that brings people from all sorts of different perspectives.
This is a well-oiled campaign machine. Even key Nats MPs are playing their part too.
Yeah, pull your head in, Matt.
And while Labor claims Barnaby Joyce has been put in witness protection, today even he got to see some sunshine.
There's been no greater champion, can I tell you, of the Inland Rail than Barnaby Joyce. I think one day he hopes to drive the train himself.
Train wreck number one.
The Deputy PM giving us all a good dose of reality.
This is not my kitchen rules. This is not, I'm a celebrity, get me out of here. And it's most certainly not Married at First Sight.
But it's obvious the government is doing all it can to pivot from the climate cluster to
our economy, a strong economy. That's why we are so focused on a strong economy.
Foreshadowing today's big jump in inflation figures with this graph.
Yes, I'm going back to my Treasurer's days pulling out the charts. There are inflationary pressures in all the major economies around the world. But there's Australia, performing better than all of them when it comes to cost of living pressures.
The question now for many voters is whether that bar chart convinces anyone this government has the answers to what we're all experiencing. The rising cost of petrol, groceries and housing, and maybe as soon as next week, higher interest rates.
What we've shown as a government is we've been able to keep as much pressure down on those forces as good governments can, and we've demonstrated that for now.
Just saw Hamish in that package there at the scrum. Hamish, thanks very much for joining us. You can't argue with a man with a chart. That is the message I got from your story. I see you're in the heart of coal country there, where the PM kind of seems to have spent most of the day trying to avoid the Matt Canavan net zero landmine. How did all that play out?
I think it's worth noting, Waleed, that actually that story about the sort of internal climate war in the coalition plays really differently here in Cairns, in Rockhampton, the rest of Queensland, to the way it might play in metropolitan Sydney or Melbourne. It gave the Prime Minister actually an opportunity to do two things today. One is he was able to spruik the hydrogen hubs, which he was here to announce, one in Gladstone, one in Townsville, hundreds of millions of dollars. He says some 6,000 jobs by 2025. The other thing, though, that it gave him the opportunity to do, which he seemed to relish, was say, look, I know not all of you are totally convinced about climate action, just like Matt Canavan. We're with you on this journey. It's been tough for us as a coalition to get united on this and go for net zero by 2050. And rest assured, we're not zealots about this. We're only going to do as much as we have to and as much as is in your interest. So I think the PM is pretty comfortable talking even about these sorts of things when they blow up.
Hamish, the Prime Minister was famously focused in 2019 in a campaign everyone thought he was going to lose. You're on the road with him. Is he as focused in 2022, in your opinion?
He is Christopher Pyne, but I reckon focused is lacking in generosity somewhat. He's pretty good at this stuff. You know, the guy has actually led this government through crisis pretty much constantly for 3 years. There's been the pandemic, of course, there's been fire, there's been flood, now there's international conflict. His sort of base setting, his base mode has been responding to crisis. Some would say not particularly well, but that's been the setting. So I think in contrast, the campaign trail actually is a lot of fun for this guy. He seems to enjoy being out amongst people. He seems quite happy to sell his record of handling crises. And something else he does particularly well is draw the comparison. Look, this set of circumstances is bad, whether it's inflation, whether it's international insecurity. Imagine what it would be like if Anthony Albanese were running the show. He does it every single time, and in fact to almost every voter as well. It seems to be a message that he is very comfortable with, and I've got to say that it is a slick operation.
Hamish, thanks so much, mate. Appreciate your time.
See you guys soon.
So fascinating the way Hamish was describing the way that the climate change debate plays out in those sort of parts.
Totally.
Yeah, it's really important for us to get a handle on that. But I'm interested in your thoughts. Give us a prediction. What
about the
happens?
election?
Yeah.
Well, I've got to say, a month ago, I think the Labor Party were going to win the election quite easily. Election campaigns reset the political agenda. And as Hamish just said, the Prime Minister feels quite invigorated on the campaign trail. It's a national pastime to grumble about the government, but as soon as an election's called, the voter actually has to think, who do I want to govern the country? So it does reset. That said, Labor should be winning this election. The last 12 months have been very rough. COVID's been bad for 2 years. The government has been quite distracted and ill-disciplined for 12 months. Labor was a very small target for this election. They're a very big target for the last election. If they can't win on May 21 in this environment, one wonders what they have to do to win. If there was an election on Saturday, Labor would win, but the coalition is making up ground. And I'm surprised at how lacklustre Labor's campaign has been. It's been almost as if they're surprised that there's an election that they've had 3 years to prepare for. And conversely, a government that's been ill-disciplined, distracted, senators refusing to vote in the Senate, anti-vaxxers, the whole kind of kit and caboodle, is looking really quite cohesive until today.
Can you be good at campaigning and not governing?
Yes, of course you can.
Yeah.
Absolutely, of course you can. But, I mean, I wouldn't say that's the characterisation of the government.
Of course you wouldn't.
No.
Yeah.